females are having their rights violated and female athletes are losing competition.
And again, it's so important for us to have equal and fair opportunities.
I'm Chris Woodward.
At least 24 people are dead in the Los Angeles wildfires as firefighters are making progress containing the flames. Madison Allworth with more from Altadena, California.
Firefighters have gotten a break because the winds have calmed down, but they did have to deal with a new fire that broke out just yesterday. So around 2 p.m., a fire broke out in Little Mountain. It spread to 34 acres. To give you some context, that's about 26 football fields. The San Bernardino Police Department also responded to that fire. They have arrested a man that they believe may be connected to it. In total, we've seen 44 arrests since these fires have broken out, a combo of things like people breaking curfew to looting as well.
More news online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty P.
The presidential election in November was nothing short of historical. Americans went to the polls and let their voices be heard, overwhelmingly electing Donald Trump as our 47th president. You can hear his inauguration on AFR beginning at 11 a.m. Central, January 20th. So if you're not able to watch, you don't have to miss out. And make sure you tell your friends and family so they don't miss the live feed of Donald Trump's inauguration ceremony, January 20th, starting at 11 a.m. Central on AFR.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thank you for listening. This is Thursday, January the 16th, 2025. Just reminding you people that spring will be here before we know it, and this nasty cold weather will be behind us. Tim Wildman here with Ed, well, Ed's not here today. Fred's here.
Fred's here.
How you doing, Brother Fred?
I'm doing great.
Fred Jackson, Wesley Wildman. Good morning, Wesley.
Good morning.
Hey, Chris Woodward.
63 days until spring.
The official spring,
yes,
right?
When you and I will enjoy one of our favorite seasons.
Who determined that?
The internet.
Well, this is
okay.
Very specific. Internet.
Yes, sir.
I'm about to start talking about something.
I'm not a fan of the
wrong.
Winter.
I think it has something to do.
Well, we're going to
with
put a timer on. You got 2 minutes. Go.
Well, it doesn't have something to do with the solstice.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm talking about the official
how they
marking of the season: spring, summer, fall, and winter.
Yes. So they're not promising that day is going to be that much more warmer.
No, it just depends on where you live and.
And
knowing that we're in Mississippi, we'll probably have an ice storm and a tornado in the same day.
Right.
Yeah.
And whatever Canada decides to send our way.
Yes.
I'll tell you what, this afternoon here in Mississippi in January, we're going to take advantage of the beautiful weather and do a little baseball.
It's 63.
63.
Oh, your baseball team's going to practice
Yeah,
today?
we'll do a little practice this afternoon because we won't be able to do it again for another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah. I know.
But I'm not complaining. I'm actually saying this is a good thing because not many other places in the country in January
you get to practice baseball
outside.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's going to be a nice couple of days, and then guess what, ladies and gentlemen? For most of the country, it's going to be bottoms out. I don't know what that
last
means.
week, part 2.
The bottom's going to drop out of any kind of warm weather because it's going to be brutally cold. In fact, in our nation's capital, where the inauguration will take place of President Donald J. Trump and Vice President
J.D.
Vance, it's going to be extremely cold, right?
And you can't wait to get there.
We're going.
But you know what, though? I thought about this since you mentioned yesterday about, be colder than you like there. It's not going to be much warmer here.
I know that, but
you're still thinking about your house.
I stay inside.
Okay.
Let me just tell you what. By the way, Fred, tell us what we're going to be doing on Monday here on AFR.
It's an exciting day here at American Family Radio. It's Inauguration Day, of course, as everybody is aware. But for the first time, American Family Radio will be covering the inauguration live. We have settled a deal with Fox News. We're a partner with Fox News for our news coverage. And so at 11 o'clock Central Time on Monday morning, when Today's Issues is normally on, we'll be introducing live coverage as Donald Trump is sworn in as the 47th president of the United States.
What time will that? So of course we're Central Time here. You're saying that in Washington D.C. obviously is Eastern Time zone.
Yes.
So does the inauguration start at 11 Eastern Time?
11 Central Time.
Okay, so we'll be broadcasting an hour. We're going to do a simulcast from Fox News.
That is correct. We'll be giving you all the highlights of all the ceremonies, the actual swearing in.
No swearing though.
No swearing.
Yeah.
Well,
Swearing in.
Well,
we're still Christian radio.
Donald Trump has a speech.
So
he's not going to do that there.
No, I think he'll have a.
He'll be classy.
Yes.
But anyway, it will be an exciting day.
Mm-hmm.
As the peaceful transition of power takes place in our nation's capital, and President Trump he'll be in office on Monday afternoon with J.D. Vance serving as his VP.
and a pen.
Huh?
You'll have a pen too.
You have a? How do you mean that?
For
big,
executive
beautiful
orders. Big beautiful pen.
Oh, yeah, it'll be executive order week.
Wow.
That's what all presidents do now.
Sure.
They'll just issue a lot of executive orders. So anyway, it's going to be an exciting day, and a lot of Americans will make their way to Washington, D.C. I was just saying, one more word about the weather, and maybe this will be the last. But what I'm saying here is for those who do brave it and stand out for those 2 or 3 hours or whatever it's going to be there in Washington, it's going to be high of 27 on Monday. Now, the sun will be out for what it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
And then the winds will be 10 to 20 miles an hour, whipping down the mall there in Washington, D.C. But, hey, maybe the excitement will overcome the temperatures there for people who want to go to D.C.
Brad, just a little advice from the director of the news department here at AFA. If you're calling Dad or expected to call Dad, president of the ministry AFA, for an interview,
yes,
while he's at the inauguration, expect him to only talk about the weather. So just don't waste your time.
I'll try not to. I don't know what happened.
and we'll try to overcome the teeth shattering. You know, at that point.
I don't know. I used to not do this, but I'm 61 now. And you start trending toward talking about the weather. When you get post 55, you start looking at it.
Well, you only talk about it when it gets cold.
I know. I know. All right. So anyway, it's going to be Old Man Winter's going to hang around for a while here.
Yes.
In January for most of the country, and
in your honor, it'll still be cold when I get back here.
I know, but springtime will be here soon, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, it's one of those things you can't appreciate one without the other. If you don't have really
good attitude,
you don't have really cold weather, you just don't appreciate the warm weather. I try to tell myself that. All right, so we hope everybody will join us on Monday for live coverage of the inauguration. And as Fred said, we have worked out a deal with Fox News to be able to simulcast their coverage. So it won't be us. You'll be hearing Fox News reporters, right?
That's right. Well, and for the most part, what you're going to hear,
you're just going to hear the commercials.
No, you're going to hear the ceremony.
Just a ceremony.
Yes.
Okay, not the commentary.
No, sir. No, sir. Now, if they have microphone problems, you may hear.
So what?
Live radio.
So just to clarify, now this starts at 10. Our show starts at 10 o'clock. So we're going to be live with our show with Fred, Ned, and company. Okay, I got you. And then at 11 o'clock Central Time, we'll switch over.
Correct.
I got you. Just to hear the ceremony.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Got you. Well, I saw where Michelle Obama is not going to be there.
Yes, and that's odd. I say odd because she was also missing from Jimmy Carter's funeral. So there have been two big public appearances that she's not making.
Why is she not there?
We aren't sure. Some people are saying that she's part of the Democrats. Yeah. Hey, Michelle. Some people are saying she's part of that Democrat group where they're not going to the inauguration. But I think it's odd. Why would you not go to Jimmy Carter's funeral when all the other first ladies were there, including Hillary? And Melania was there.
That's a good question. I don't know. I've never heard of a. Now, President Trump did not go to Joe Biden's inauguration. So that's not unprecedented.
That feels like 15 years ago.
I know, right? So Trump didn't go to. Of course, they were having that's post January 6th. There was a lot of problems and tension in the air.
There was.
That was kind of what led to that particular issue. But we'll see. But President Barack Obama scheduled to be there.
Yeah, they appeared to be very chummy at Jimmy Carter's funeral.
Which
Not a
may be
place
why
where-
she's not going.
That's true. It could be.
Yes.
Oh, you mean Obama and Trump?
They sat next to one another and
share some laughs, talk.
It's a boys' club, the presidency. Until we have a woman, it is a boys' club.
Yeah. All right. What's your first story, Chris?
All right. So Trump is going to enter office Monday, and one of the people that Trump wants to be in his cabinet is former Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Trump nominated Mr. Rubio for Secretary of State. He had his confirmation hearing yesterday. It looks like he's probably going to be nominated because, or confirmed, I should say, because Rubio he left the Senate. That left a vacancy for the U.S. Senate seat. And after weeks of speculation and prediction from people, including our guest on this here program, Ron DeSantis finally made it official today and announced his pick to replace Marco Rubio in the U.S. Senate. I have the announcement here, clip 15.
I wanted somebody with a demonstrated record of delivering results on those important issues. Talk is cheap. We need people that have demonstrated fidelity to these principles with their actions. So that is why today I'm proud to announce that I am selecting our Attorney General, Ashley Moody, to serve as our next U.S. Senator.
So Ashley Moody is the current Attorney General of the state of Florida.
Yes, and people have seen her a lot on Fox. If you've watched Fox at any point in the last 2 years, you've seen her on a show.
So, as you say, just the dominoes here. Senator Marco Rubio was selected by President Trump to be Secretary of State. A massive job. I mean, one of the top jobs in any administration. So that left the vacancy. So it's up to the governor of said state, in this case Florida, to select a replacement until a election to fulfill the term that Rubio had until the next election cycle. Is that true?
That's true.
Okay, so what has she got, like 2 years left?
She's got 2 years left, and
but she's been elected.
That's right.
She's won statewide elections. What age is she? She looks.
I'd say she's 50-something. I'll look it up.
She's not 50.
No, I think she's younger than that.
You shouldn't say stuff like that, Chris.
Well, I look
about
like
a
I'm old
woman. You
enough.
should not guess her age.
49.
And go over. Huh? See, Chris.
Vindication.
Okay. Oh, she's 49?
Yes.
Well, she's a young-looking 49.
Man, she looks 39.
You know, I look 75 because I've had gray hairs since I was 15. So.
I don't mean that in a negative way, Chris.
You were affirming what he said.
You're a seasoned.
Yeah. It's news. That's why my hair's
But
white.
If Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, selects you to replace somebody, she's going to be a rock solid conservative.
Oh, she is all the way. All the what she's been doing as Attorney General, all the conservative causes. I would say she and Ron DeSantis are clones.
Okay.
When it comes to political values.
Well, I like to hear that because Governor DeSantis is a rock star.
Yeah, he is.
In terms of what he's done in the state of Florida.
Yes.
And I'll just say this. So this leads us to the next story because with the appointment of Ashley Moody, the current Attorney General of the state of Florida, to be the next U.S. Senator from Florida, Ashley Moody was preceded in that office by the next person we're going to talk about, right?
Pam Bondi.
Pam Bondi, who she had an 8-year stint
yes.
as Attorney General in the state of Florida. So she'll be serving as President Trump's Attorney General.
Yes.
Right? So.
She was Attorney General for years, including time that Barack Obama was president. She preceded the Trump presidency as a Florida Attorney General.
You're a Republican coming out of Florida, and you're going to Trump's administration. Got to be a good thing.
Yes.
With the leadership of Ron DeSantis, that is.
Just stop and think about the Florida representation. Donald Trump from Florida now.
By way of Queens. Manhattan.
Yes.
Detour.
Yeah.
You have Marco Rubio, a Floridian, Secretary of State. The Attorney General of the country is going to be Pam Bondi from Florida.
Yeah.
And now the new senator, obviously from Florida, is Ashley Moody.
Right.
You talk about Democrats' heads spinning.
Yeah.
All of these traditional conservative value people.
I had wondered aloud, Governor DeSantis could have appointed himself And I wondered if he would do that. People don't like people doing that, but still, he only has 2 years left in Tallahassee as governor of the state, and then he would have served 2 consecutive terms. He's out as governor.
Mm-hmm.
So what does the future hold for Governor DeSantis in politics and government if that's the road he chooses to go down? So I thought he might want to be in the Senate. If you want to be in the Senate, what a great golden opportunity to be in the Senate, and that is you leave the governor's mansion and you go to Washington to be the senator from Florida, having appointed yourself. But he chose not to do that, and I think this choice, Governor DeSantis' choice, kind of means, it seems to me, means he's not interested in being in the Senate. Does that say that?
And so that leads to other speculation.
Oh, okay. Other speculation.
Would he like to be on the
When are we going to get to Pam Bondi's fireworks yesterday?
Oh, we've got some.
I'm ready to play those.
All right.
Did you hear these, Wesley?
I did.
Yes.
All right. So we have several.
Let me tell people to buckle up right here. Because Pam Bondi, who we just talking about, who appeared before the Senate yesterday for her hearings, she was loaded for bear, so to speak.
Yes.
And there were a couple of bears from
California.
Hawaii,
California. They were, anyway.
The funny thing is, there is a bear.
That's
the
the Golden Bear
State,
State, right?
Yeah.
So a couple of bears from California Democrats were ready to try to make her look bad.
Yes.
And she said, to use a sports term, "Bring it." And so, what do we got? What are we going to listen to here?
Well, we have several clips at our disposal, but let's
you
do
can play
this
as
one.
many as you want.
Let's do this one. Let's begin with a montage, and if we want, we can play some other things in longer
okay.
cuts.
Do we have music in the background?
We do not.
Like Eye of the Tiger, anything like that?
Not yet, but we'll work on that for you. Let's do this. It's a montage. Fox actually aired this earlier today. Clip 4.
Are you aware of any factual basis to investigate Liz Cheney? Yes or no?
Senator, that's a hypothetical, and I'm not going to answer that question.
No, it's not hypothetical.
I will never play politics. You're trying to engage me in a gotcha. I won't
I'm just
do it.
asking you a simple
I
question.
won't play
If you can
politics
speak truth
with any ongoing
to power.
investigation.
So let me ask you.
You say the right things, that you're going to be the people's lawyer. That's what you have to say to be here.
You said that I have to sit up here and say these things. No, I don't. I sit up here and speak the truth.
That's just one.
What else we got?
So another one that has gotten a lot of people talking on X, for example, was her exchange with Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono, who
I haven't heard this one, I don't think.
He was, in my opinion, by far the most obnoxious questionnaire. How do you say it? Questionary?
Questionnaire.
You can say whatever we make up words.
That's right. Yeah.
More gooder.
More gooder. He was awful.
Okay, is that who we're about to hear?
Well, we've got let's do the Hirono situation here.
Is he the Hawaiian though? Democrat you're talking about?
I believe that's
from California.
Yeah. We have two. We have Mazie Hirono and we have Senator Padilla, who's one of the senators from California.
Who are we going to hear first?
Let's do Hirono. Clip 5.
If President-elect Trump suggests, or hints that you as Attorney General should investigate one of his perceived political enemies, would you do so?
Senator Hirono, I wish you had met with me. Had you met with me, we could have discussed many things and gotten to know.
I am listening to you now. Could you respond to the question?
Yeah, you were the only one who refused to meet with me, Senator. But what we would have discussed is that it is the job of the Attorney General to
I'm very
follow
happy to listen
the law.
to your responses under oath, Ms. Bondi. So I think it's really important to us that the Attorney General be independent of the White House. And you have a president-elect who considers the AG's office his law firm.
I certainly have not heard the president say that. But what I will tell you is 2/3 of Americans have lost faith in the Department of Justice. And it's statements like that, I believe,
Ms.
that make
Bondi.
people continue to lose faith. If I am confirmed as Attorney General, it will be my job
Getting
to
on
not
to my
only
next
keep
question,
America
you're not
safe.
responding.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did respond.
Right. She didn't
and by the
respond
way,
in a way she
what
would have.
Pam Bondi was saying, you didn't meet with me. We could have talked about this privately, or at least in a meeting prior to. And she could have asked her the same thing. So anyway, what's next?
All right. So next is.
I want to have the real fireworks when she gets into it with Schiff and you got that.
Well, I've got one of these senators here. It's Pam Bondi versus California Democrat Senator Alex Padilla. Clip 7.
After I gave an opportunity to study overnight. So can you tell me and this committee what the citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment says?
Senator, I'm here to answer your questions. I'm not here to do your homework and study for you. If I am confirmed as
You're
Attorney
the one
General...
asking for a confirmation
Hey,
vote,
you
ma'am.
cut me off. Can I please finish?
What does the 14th Amendment say?
Senator, the 14th Amendment, we all know, addresses birthright citizenship. I've been a state prosecutor. I've been a state AG. I look forward to, even given your remarks today, working with you and the people of California if I am confirmed as the 87th Attorney General of the United States of America. I didn't take your homework assignment. I'm sorry. I was preparing for today.
And we don't have we don't have a longer cut of her versus Schiff. He did appear in that montage that I played first.
Oh, you got to.
Now,
that's disappointing.
I can play. I'm sorry. I can't give you some reaction.
Worse than the popcorn machine not working.
Well, Schiff. She dunked on Schiff.
Yeah. Well, she just dunked on that gentleman. What was his name again?
Alex Padilla.
Okay, so the Padilla is a clip that I saw, the longer version of it. That guy's awful. He is just an awful person. There's nothing redeemable about the way he approached that. He asked a question when she opened her mouth. He said, "Okay, you're not going to answer."
He cut her off.
It was one after, like I just did you.
Yeah.
I mean, he did that for 5 minutes, and so it was ridiculous.
Right, she's going to be confirmed.
Yeah, she'll be confirmed.
She will.
It certainly looks like it. And I would say the same thing about Pete Hegseth. A lot of people were really high on his exchanges and remarks a couple of days ago.
She also told that gentleman, forgive me, what was his name again?
Alex Padilla.
Alex Padilla's. He said at the end of that one, he said, "Well, I'm really." He said tomorrow will be day 2. We'll revisit this. She said, "I hope you do."
Yeah, it does continue today. They're bringing in witnesses to testify for
witnesses for what?
Well, it's one of those like
you mean for and against?
Think Brett Kavanaugh, where they brought in people for and against him a few years ago.
Brett Kavanaugh, they went back to his junior year in high school.
Yes, and he had a calendar for some reason.
Some girl who
1982.
said some girl said she doesn't remember where she was, but he sexually assaulted her.
Yeah. That too feels like 15 years ago.
That turned out to be completely and utterly false.
Yeah, it's fabricated.
So I do have some more clips we could play. These are Republicans weighing in on this situation.
Play one more.
One more. It's Senator Mike Lee on the grilling of Pam Bondi. Clip 8.
As they were peppering her with questions about the weaponization of the Department of Justice, I cannot fathom a universe in which they could say that without feeling some guilt and some shame along with that. Meanwhile, you've got Adam Schiff going after her. His state is literally looks like a post-apocalyptic hellscape because it is, and he's worried about Liz Cheney.
Mike Lee, the senator from Utah.
Why did he bring up Liz? Why are they asking about Liz Cheney? What's the deal there?
Well, Trump has issues with Liz Cheney because she was part of the J6 committee, and they were wondering whether or not Trump and Bondi might work together to go after people like Liz Cheney.
Well, no, they won't.
No.
They won't, and they shouldn't. Liz Cheney, because that is an abuse of power to target somebody, and President Trump knows that better than anybody. So I don't think, and Pam Bondi's never struck me as the type of person that would do anything like that anyway.
Nope.
When I've seen her interviewed and heard her talk. So that's not going to happen. Liz Cheney, okay, she lost her seat in Wyoming. That was her punishment. Basically, the citizens of her own state said, you know what, we're going to remove you because you don't represent us and our values anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know Liz Cheney personally. She was a very a real conservative.
Fiscal.
She wasn't the other either. I mean, I thought she had a pretty good voting record across the board. She would be.
About Pam. Who are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about Liz Cheney.
Oh, gotcha.
She was a conservative. She was considered a very conservative congresswoman and then she got caught up in this January 6th committee that went on and on and on and on and on and on. She could have, if Liz Cheney would have wanted, this is my own opinion, if she would have wanted to say something like, she should have known better than to get hooked up with Nancy Pelosi. All right. That's her first mistake. If she would have wanted to issue something to say, I find January 6th what happened to be appalling, and what President Trump said and did there, I find it objectionable, and as a Republican, I disagree with it. And if she wanted to do something like that, I think everybody would have understood. But when she joined up with Nancy Pelosi in that endless committee, charade, dog and pony show, and I apologize to the dog and ponies, then that's when she started getting into on a bad path.
Yeah.
In my view. Now, I will say, we'll do that one. I will say this, and President Trump has nothing for her, but he had her beat. He helped beat her in her election, and that was her punishment. We'll be back.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
You have probably heard this story, but it's one which is worth hearing again and again. Once there was a small boy who would lie about everything. His father tried several times to get his small son to stop lying, but nothing seemed to work. One day, however, his father came up with an idea which he thought would surely cause the boy to quit lying. The father put a post in the front yard of the home. He called his young son in and told him that each time the boy told a lie, he would drive a nail into the post. Well, the young boy didn't stop lying, and the father began driving nails into the post. Quite often someone would ask the boy what the post with the nails was doing in his front yard. The boy, not wanting the truth known, would tell another lie. Before long, the post was nearly full of nails. Well, one day the young boy came home and told his father that he was tired of lying and wished to begin telling the truth. His father was overjoyed. He told his son that every time he told the truth, a nail would be removed from the post. One by one, the nails were pulled out. After some time, the post was free of nails. When the boy saw that the last nail had been removed, he asked his father about removing the post. His father said he would. Together they went out to do the appointed task. The young boy looked at the post, thought for a moment, and then spoke to his father. "Daddy, the nails are gone, but the holes where the nails were are still there." The father turned to his son, hesitated for a moment, then replied, "Yes, son, they are. We can put putty in the holes, smooth them over, and even paint the post, but the scars which the holes made will always be in the post." It is true that every lie we tell drives a nail in our character. The nails can be removed, but the scar will remain for a long time. Of course, the post was not a living object and had no way to heal itself. But as living humans, over a period of time, we can grow new tissue and the scar will disappear. Telling a lie will leave its mark, to be sure. We will never be able to change the hurt and agony it causes, but we can change the cause of our lying, that is, ourself. The post could do nothing to what was happening to it, but the boy could, and did. And of course it was the father who pointed out the need for change to his child. On a higher plane, the boy represents us, and the father represents God. God has told us that lying hurts us, that it drives nails into our character. But he has also said he's willing to remove those nails and even heal the scars left by the nails. His requirement is a change of attitude and practice on our part. The laws of living which God has given us, including the one against lying, are given for our good. Unlike the post, our characters need not decay when the nails are removed, but can live and grow stronger by the application of God's truth.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
The Lord looks down from heaven on all mankind to see if there are any who understand, any who seek God. Psalm 14, verse 2.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Welcome back, everybody, to today's issues on American Family Radio. Tim, Fred, Wesley, and Chris. And just saw where Bob Euchre passed away. You remember him, Fred?
No, I don't.
Wesley and Chris wouldn't remember that name. You don't remember that name?
Mm-mm.
Bob Euchre, he was a baseball guy.
Okay.
And he was known for his funny quips. Anyway, he's died at 91 years old.
Wow.
He had a Miller Lite beer commercial that is iconic where he talks about sitting on the front row. You remember that? You guys don't remember that? Okay, well, anyway, I know Wesley and Chris wouldn't remember that. That's back in the 70s.
Well, I recognize his face.
Bob Euchre, yeah. Well, he was in some movies too. Kind of a baseball. He was a broadcast guy for the Milwaukee Brewers for a long time.
Well, yeah, and he was also on Rookie of the Year.
That's what I mean. He was on some movies you would be familiar with, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Bob Euchre. He was 90 years old. He was a baseball commentator. I think he did play in the big leagues, and he was also a comic.
I'm sorry.
I just remember front row.
It wasn't Rookie of the Year. It was Major League. That's the one he was on.
Major League?
Yeah.
All right, so you're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Well, one of the ministries that many of you support is PreBorn, and this is it's pro-life month, right, across the country. Many churches are participating in pro-life activities, and we at American Family Association, American Family Radio, will never ever quit standing up for unborn babies.
Amen.
Because they're created in the image of God, and it's immoral.
And we're compelled as Christians to do something about it.
And we do. That's right. That's right. We're compelled as Christians to stand for the defenseless. And who more defenseless than the unborn baby in the mother's womb who are at risk of abortion? So one of the gentlemen that we work with closely in the organization with PreBorn, who's the chair and founder of PreBorn, is Dan Steiner. And Dan joins us now. Good morning, Dan.
Hey, Tim. God bless you.
Thank you. You home in Indiana today?
No, we've got a event down here with Glenn Beck in Florida this weekend, thankfully.
Well, yeah, that's kind of convenient, isn't it, Dan? You're in Florida in January. Okay, then. Why didn't you're down there with who?
Glenn Beck.
Yeah, why didn't Glenn go to Minnesota in January?
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably for the same reason we didn't hold the thing down there, up there.
If you want to really show your commitment to the cause. No, I'm just teasing.
Yeah.
I'm just teasing. Well, Dan, talk about, by the way, what year did you start PreBorn?
It was actually started in 2007, chartered. And, not too shortly after that, Tim, AFR and us got together, and we've saved a bunch of babies since.
How many?
About 331,000. Small city.
I want folks to think about that, and this is not to pat ourselves on the back, but it is to pat our listeners on the back who have supported the work of PreBorn.
Absolutely.
For those who don't know, real quickly, maybe you're new to American Family Radio, Dan is the founder of PreBorn. You might say, well, what is that? They're an organization that it's a nonprofit. They pay for, they use the money that is donated to them, like from you, our listeners, to pay for ultrasounds for women who are considering abortion.
Mm-hmm.
And once the women see, oftentimes they're girls, in their teens, and then women in their 20s. That's kind of how I distinguish between girl and women. But anyway, they are convinced after seeing the screen, hey, I can't. This is a moving human being. I can't, with a beating heart. I can't have it killed. There's another option. I'll give it up for adoption, or keep it, or whatever, but I can't have it chopped up into pieces. Mm-hmm. Excuse the vulgarity of my description, but that's what it is we're talking about here that happens to a baby during an abortion. So Dan, God laid it on Dan Steiner's heart to do something, to start something, and so here we are, whatever
And
it
as we
is.
chip away at the
17
legislative
years
side
later.
of it,
What now?
As we chip away at the legislative side of it, this is something that adds, outside of politics.
You don't have to
outside-
have there's no law
Mm-mm.
that you have to pass to do what Dan does with PreBorn,
Right.
and what we encourage you to support. And as Dan said, since 2007, over 330,000, is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Babies have been saved because the women saw the ultrasound that many of our listeners helped pay for. So did I basically get it right there in a minute and a half or 2 minutes?
Yeah, that's really it. What we've done together is save a small city, and that ultrasound doubles the likelihood that she'll choose life. She's under pressure by, a lot of times it's the mother of the pregnant girl or woman, wanting to abort her grandchild incredulously, and another culprit is the boyfriend or husband pushing her. But when she sees that baby and hears that heartbeat, the heartbeat is even more powerful than the picture, because blobs of tissue and masses of cells don't have heartbeats. And so that really changes her mind. And then we come beside her with maternity clothes and cribs and car seats and doctor visits, everything for free. And that $28 donation that so many AFR listeners have made, not just doesn't sponsor the ultrasound alone, it sponsors all the help for 2 years afterwards. Even
How do you do that for $28?
It's by the grace of God is what it is, and a lot of donations from a lot of people.
Okay. I want to ask you real quickly, Dan, too. How does this physically happen? I mean, how do you have by that I mean, how do they find out about PreBorn? The pregnant girls.
That's really the challenge these days, particularly, Tim, as 65% of all abortions are procured on the internet, chemical, digital. They find out where to get an abortion pill, and it's delivered to their mailbox. Even in pro-life states like Mississippi or Texas, they get it on the internet from a foreign website or an out-of-state website. It's mailed to their mailbox. Through hours of bloody trauma, they deliver their baby on their bathroom floor or in their toilet.
Oh, wow.
That's 65% of them. And to that, PreBorn has a very sophisticated technological platform where we reach these girls on the internet before the abortionist does, have them call our call center, talk to a nurse, schedule an appointment at one of our centers then to get that ultrasound. So a big part of what we do before the ultrasound is find her searching for these abortions and get her schedule her into our clinic.
So $28 will buy one ultrasound.
Yep, 5 for $140. It's all 100% of the money. It's donor designated funds goes to our clinics all across the country.
Okay.
And
what do people need to do? If they want to make a $28 or $100 or whatever donation? What do they need to do?
Yep, they just go to afr.net or preborn.com, or they can dial the AFR phone number, which is 877-616-2396, 877-616-2396. It's tax deductible. And we'll send a picture of a baby whose life was saved and a story like the one that they sponsor, put on the fridge, and pray for the baby.
What's the phone number again?
877-616-2396.
Okay, Dan, thanks so much for being on with us. God bless you. Thank you for listening to the Lord in 2007. And listen, and look what's happened since, and we will continue to partner with you.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it so much.
Okay, that's Dan Steiner. He's the founder and CEO. I want to tell folks, if you want to give the $28, or what's double that? 56. If you want to buy two, it's $56, right?
And for 5, $140.
Okay, so you just need to go to afr.net. You can give that way, right, Wesley?
Yep, that's what I was going to recommend, afr.net. The reason I'd give, if you're driving and you can't call, just remember afr.net, because it's right there at the top. It's a give button, and it's also got any additional information or questions that from the interview or something that you may have about how this money's being used and that kind of effect.
Okay, afr.net. That's the easiest way.
Mm-hmm.
But also the phone number, I have it. Do you have it?
Yeah, I got it right here. 878
Start over. You gave it 8 twice. Go ahead.
877 616 2396.
That's right.
877-616-2396.
Yeah, 877-616-2396. If you want to tell them, hey, I heard Dan being interviewed on American Family Radio, and I want to make a donation. And rest assured, folks, they've been around since 2007 and highly credible organization, or we wouldn't work with them.
You know, stop and think about it for a minute. $28, and you're saving the life of a human being for $28.
Yeah. Chris, you said your Sunday school class. What?
Yeah, it's not my Sunday school class. Where I go to church, there is a Sunday school class, and a family named the Saps. They bring in coffee. They make some baked goods. They sell those to congregants at the church, and through those sales, they donate that money to PreBorn.
Oh, amen.
And,
what a great idea.
Yeah. I would highly encourage other churches to do something similar to that.
Yeah. All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. I'm Tim with Fred, Wesley, and Chris. We hope you're having a great day, and thank you for listening to AFR. And we get lots of nice emails, and I got a handwritten note this morning, two notes this morning about how AFR is impacting people's lives. Got a really nice letter from a 93-year-old listener in Texas.
Really?
Yes. Said she loves listening to AFR and what an impact we've had on her. And then we got another letter from it's a handwritten letter. A handwritten letter that J.J. Jasper read at devotion this morning from a listener in Mississippi who I think she was going to have an abortion.
She had an abortion.
No, that's what it was. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
She had an abortion as a teenager, I believe.
Yeah.
And it had plagued her whole life. She was, up in her adulthood years, 40s or whatever. And she had felt the guilt of and the shame and carried that with her whole, from decades. And she heard AFR, and she heard us talking about where you can call to get counseling on forgiveness.
Yeah.
And that Jesus Christ can forgive you of any sin and set you on a new path. And she wanted us to. It was a handwritten note. Maybe we can read it sometime. We haven't got permission from her to give her name, nor would we want to do that. But I mean, it was just the power. She said she heard us talking about that, and that led her to call.
Yeah, I think she heard the testimony of another woman who in a similar situation.
Yes.
She had an abortion. Overwhelming guilt over it. And in the course of that interview, there was, listening to a promotion for an agency that helps young women who are dealing with the guilt of that.
Yeah, well, you know how many women who are now in their 50s, 60s, even 70s who had abortions back in the 70s and 80s who at that time really didn't even know what they were doing. They did. They didn't. Right. They didn't know. They were told it was a blob of tissue. It's not a human being. All these things.
No heartbeat.
This is before ultrasounds or anything that you could use for them to see it. Before we had PreBorn, for example.
Right.
And then they came to realize over the years, as the science became available for us to look inside the womb, hey, what I did was terrible. What I participated in.
Yeah.
Was sinful, and then they've gotten counseling or prayed to the Lord Jesus Christ for forgiveness of their sin, which is what He promises He will do if you ask for it and you repent. Jesus Christ will forgive you. That's what Pete Hegg says. That was so powerful about his testimony the other day.
Yeah, he didn't make excuses. He took responsibility.
Had nothing to do with abortion.
Sure,
but he was talking about living a life of sin and being forgiven by Christ.
On this same discussion, I also had a handwritten note and a picture on my desk in which I have given this story to the Stand, our print magazine, to consider as a story. And one of our supporters, mom, in the 30s, was raped.
In the 1930s.
1930s, she was raped, and this woman that was raped was encouraged by people around her to get an abortion.
Even then, huh? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and or the 40s. I've got the letter on my desk, or I've given it to the Stand, and She was encouraged to get an abortion. She elected not to, and the baby that she gave birth to was the person that was writing the letter to us, who listens to us, who financially supports us, and she's in her 70s with 18 grandchildren.
Wow, that would be an awesome story.
She's probably listening right now. She listens all the time.
Right.
And so, but she was the product of a rape,
Right.
and her mom chose to keep her.
Yeah.
Well, because it was the right thing to do.
You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. If you want to send us an email, go to comments@afr.net, comments@afr.net, comments@afr.net. Again, thank you for listening to American Family Radio. Tim, Fred, Wesley, and Chris. Joining us now is our good friend Jan Markell. Jan is host of Understanding the Times Radio, a very popular program here on AFR, heard Saturdays at 1 o'clock Central Time and noon Central Time each week on Sundays on American Family Radio. And Jan and her team there, they cover current events, Bible prophecy, what's going on in with respect to Israel. And Jan joins us now. Good morning, Jan.
Good morning, Tim. Thank you for having me.
You know what we're going to ask you, so go ahead and answer it.
Yeah.
It's what if you were open to go over there and open the door, Jan. We joke with Jan. Jan lives in Minnesota, and Minnesota can be beautiful many months of the year, but then winter hits, and hits in late July, and
that's exactly right. The high is three below zero on Sunday now coming up.
The high?
3 below zero is the high?
On Sunday, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah. You don't want to come ice fishing up here.
Well, I was talking with a friend of mine the other day. He said, talking about Michigan. He said, we were both golfers, and he said, I've been to Michigan, and it's beautiful in the summer to go up there. He said they have some great golf courses just on the lake, and he said the problem is they're only open like 5 months a year.
yeah.
because of the weather conditions. Well, anyway, Jan, what do you think? We've been reporting on what's happening in Israel. Of course, it's international news that there's a potential deal between Hamas and the Israeli government to have a ceasefire. And anyway, what are your thoughts on what's happening there today?
Well, this is just a paragraph out of Times of Israel. Quote, the Prime Minister instructed the negotiating team to stand firm on the agreed understandings and to outright reject Hamas's last-minute extortion attempt. So right now, it's hit a bump in the road.
Right.
And the Israeli people at this point in time, and the Israeli people aren't people who give in to any kind of pressure, but at this point, they just want those hostages free.
Right,
and
right.
in one press release, my understanding is even some babies or children are going to be, and it's a miracle they're alive. And this is what matters at this point. But it's a very, very tense time, Tim, and we all know that Hamas has a demonic agenda
Right.
to destroy God's land and people.
That's right. And so for those who haven't heard, of course, yesterday it was breaking news that Israel and Hamas had reached an agreement, a ceasefire agreement, and but the details had yet to be worked out, and they're still being worked through. And what's happened, as Jan was referring to, in the last 12 to 24 hours, as Israel says that Hamas is trying to put more conditions on the original agreement there.
Yeah.
So, the fact that Hamas has held these innocent citizens hostage, babies.
That's right.
Some of them children hostage for a year and a half now. I mean, it's a wonder any of them are still alive at all, quite frankly.
It is a miracle, exactly.
But anyway, listen, I of course I don't live in Israel, but like you, Jan, I have friends there. I know that Benjamin Netanyahu domestically in Israel is sort of a controversial figure, but you know what? What politician isn't? So he has his proponents and detractors, but I've always trusted him in what he said
Yes.
to America, and so I'm going with what he says here. Are you too?
Yeah. Yeah, I believe Benjamin Netanyahu is a man for such a time as this for
Right.
Israel. He's
Right.
not perfect. No politician is.
Right.
But he's a little bit like Donald Trump. He truly loves his country, and he
Right.
wants to do what's right. He's fallen mankind, like all of us,
Right.
and therefore, he's battling those elements. But he has taken Israel through some of her darkest times, of which we're going through now as we speak. My hope, gentlemen, and it would be a miracle, would be that those two little red-headed boys, the Bebas children, might even still be alive, because they're referring to babies that may be set free, and that could only be the Bebas kids, which it's been assumed that they've been murdered. And maybe not. Maybe God's performed a miracle here. But the minute you see those little red-headed boys, your heart just breaks for that mom who's down there, too, in these tunnels or wherever they're being kept.
Yeah.
But you know what? Your audience can pray, Tim, and I think that's what we need to be doing.
Yes, absolutely.
It's Fred here, Jan. All the
Yeah.
way along, Benjamin Netanyahu has said this campaign ends, and he'll call it an end when Hamas cannot control Gaza anymore.
He said that?
Yeah, he said that initially in the campaign. He was going to continue to ensure Hamas can never do this kind of thing again. That seems to be the issue right now, because Hamas has no intention of giving up control of Gaza. This morning I heard President Trump's incoming national security advisor say that once Trump takes office on Monday, he will ensure that Hamas never controls Gaza again. So I think there's going to be a part 2 to this whole effort for a ceasefire. The part 1 we're hearing right now does not guarantee Hamas is out of there. Part 2, it seems to be when Trump takes control, Hamas never takes control of Gaza again.
Fred, that is exactly right. We have a historic day coming up on Monday, and I don't say that politically, but I say that from the standpoint that we're going to have a leader who is going to take charge and who is Israel's friend to the best he knows how. And he doesn't know the Bible all that well, but to the best he can, he's trying to be Israel's friend. And I think that that's the turning point in a lot of things coming up on Monday, yes.
All right, Jan, thanks so much for being on with us. What do you know what you're going to be talking about this weekend on your show?
We're going to be talking a little bit about California. We're going to talk to Seth Gruber and a lot of current events. So, again, thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Jan. That's Jan Markell joining us from Minnesota. And be sure to tune in to her program on Saturday at 1 o'clock Central Time, Understanding the Times, and noon on Sunday Central Time right here on American Family Radio. Well, Fred, what's happening in Israel? Israel has to have the assurance that Hamas cannot rebuild so that they can attack Israel again militarily. By militarily, Hamas doesn't have a, quote, military per se, but I'm talking about as a terrorist organization. So Hamas attacked Israel, if we remember, in August, October 7th, 2023, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they butchered 1,100 to 1,200 Israelis on that fateful day. And Israel responded. And Israel responded with overwhelming force and basically just blew up Gaza, okay? And in the midst of that, there were, citizens of Gaza who were non-combatants who died. And that's terrible, but that happens in war, unfortunately and sadly. So you had people die, but Israel had to do what they had to do, or else they were going to die.
Yes.
Okay. So they defended themselves, and what they're going to do now, Israel, with their war against Hezbollah, which is over. Basically, they've destroyed Hezbollah in the north, and Hamas in Gaza. they have to dismantle them permanently so that they can never attack Israel again. That's what Israel's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the world, many in the world condemned them for it because they say, look how many Palestinian, the Arabs are dying there in Gaza as a result of the bombardment of Israel. Well, again, there's no way to avoid innocent people dying in war. When your ultimate objective is to stop any more attacks on your country.
And the responsibility for every death in Gaza lies with Hamas, not Israel.
They started it.
That's right.
We'll be back momentarily. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Abraham Hamilton III.
If you really want to see the tides turning in our country, can I challenge you and encourage you? If the Lord could grab a hold of us in our family, you would see the tide in our politics turn.
The Hamilton Quarter, weekday afternoons at 5 Central on American Family Radio.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has named a replacement for Senator Marco Rubio, who is set to become President Trump's Secretary of State.
Talk is cheap. We need people that have demonstrated fidelity to these principles with their actions. So that is why today I'm proud to announce that I am selecting our Attorney General, Ashley Moody, to serve as our next U.S. Senator.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz says he's introducing legislation that would seek to undo an offshore drilling ban in U.S. coastal waters that was recently enacted by President Biden. The Republican senator saying he expects the House to bring it to the floor at some point and says he believes President Biden is ignoring the will of American voters with this ban.
In November, the voters came and voted and gave a clear mandate to Donald Trump. And Joe Biden every day is putting policies in place that are essentially saying, screw you to the voters, are doing everything they can to make it harder for President Trump and the new administration.
The Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee holds a hearing to discuss the Remain in Mexico policy as President Trump returns to the White House. Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson says the policy obviously worked as he criticizes Joe Biden's handling of illegal immigration.
So when President Trump faced his immigration crisis, he did something about it. He used the existing law. And it was a lie over the last 4 years that President Biden didn't have the executive authority to secure the border. He had it.
As wildfires continue to tear through Los Angeles, the city faces criticism for recently cutting more than $17 million from the fire department's budget. William LaJeunesse has more.
When the Palisades fire broke out, every available firefighter showed up, yet many had no pumper truck, engine, or vehicle to use. Many are here, the maintenance yard, where up to 1 in 6 LA fire trucks are broken down, unavailable because the department has no money to fix them. Compared to other major cities, LAFD is grossly understaffed, far below recommended levels. A huge drain on fire resources, the homeless. Last year, LAFD responded to 14,000 fires and 52,000 medical calls. While next year's budget calls for more mechanics and replacement vehicles, the department wants another $5 million for EV charging stations and almost $2 million for a diversity and inclusion plan.
Northwestern University is set to offer a course on, quote, unsettling whiteness. To explain, here's Bronson Woodruff.
The Illinois Institution's Department of Black Studies is offering this course per Northwestern's website. Stone Washington is a PhD candidate at George Washington University and a member of Project 21 Black Leadership Network. He said in an interview with AFN he was a little bit troubled, to say the least, when he saw this story.
Northwestern University, the private university, very elite and well-respected in the Chicago, Illinois area. But for them to just come up with a course that is just so myopic, narrow-minded, focused on just their view of what we call whiteness, the phrase that's been kind of going around a lot.
The course's description reads, quote, making the historical, political, and cultural formation of whiteness in Western modernity visible and narratable for commentary and analysis, particular reference to contemporary culture.
they start off with a false premise that basically promoting that this white supremacy is systemic and it undermines institutional fairness, and it's pervasive. It's across all of our academic institutions, where they just assume that white people are in dominant positions and everybody else just doesn't have a chance to be equally successful. And I just think that it's really intellectually dishonest.
Washington said he actually hopes a lot of people do take the class. He wants them to look at it with a critical perspective in terms of thinking, why?
Why aren't other, minority viewpoints considered in this class? Why is this just like a demonization of white people and a misunderstanding of like white privilege and white supremacy?
I'm Bronson Woodruff.
U.S. stock indexes are drifting. The S&P 500 was up 0.1% today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average slipped 43 points, and the NASDAQ Composite fell 0.1%. Stocks were holding steadier after shooting higher the day before, on hopes that an encouraging report on inflation may convince the Federal Reserve to deliver more cuts to interest rates. More news online at afn.net and the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
The loss of a child through abortion, miscarriage, or stillbirth affects the emotional health of families. Feelings of anger, sadness, and regret can be overwhelming. There is hope and healing in the aftermath of a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline at 866-482-LIFE to talk with someone who has been where you are and healed to help others. Your call is confidential. 866-482-LIFE.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Well, all right then. Had a little sneeze action going on right before we went on there. Nobody heard it though, right?
It's called a cough button, not a sneeze
Yes, and
button.
I used it. I used it. All right, thanks for joining us back here, everybody, for the last 25 minutes of the Today's Issues program. Tim, Fred, Wesley, and now Steve Paisley Jordahl joins us. Good morning, Brother Steve.
Good morning, everybody.
So you and I were talking in the hall. I mentioned last hour Bob Uecker.
Yeah.
Who a lot of, especially our baby boomer audience, will recognize that name. He passed away at 90.
At 90 years old, he did. The Brewers put an announcement out, very heartfelt. It's tragic passing for them. He was not only a great player for them, he was their voice, their
radio voice
for years. It was kind of like the soundtrack of summer. He was hilarious, and this is as much for Wesley as it is for anybody else, because those that don't know Bob Uecker, this is a little taste of Bob Uecker. This is him at his Hall of Fame, and by the way, he's a great player in the Hall of Fame. This is him at his Hall of Fame induction ceremony. This is part of his speech, cut 16.
During every player's career, there comes a time when you know that your services are no longer required, that you might be moving on, traded, sold, released, whatever it may be. And having been with 4 clubs, I picked up a few of these tips. I remember Gene Mauch doing things to me at Philadelphia. I'd be sitting there and he'd say, grab a bat and stop this rally. Send me up there without a bat and tell me to try for a walk. Look down at the third base coach for a sign and have him turn his back on you. But you know what? Things like that never bothered me. I've set records that will never be equaled. 90% I hope are never printed. 200 lifetime batting average in the major leagues, which tied me with another sports great, averaging 200 or better for a 10-year period. Don Carter, one of our top bowlers. In 1967, I set a major league record for pass balls. And I did that without playing every game. With people like Necro, and this was another thing that I found the easy way out, to catch a knuckleball, was to wait until it stopped rolling and then just pick it up.
By the way, he made the Hall of Fame, I think, as a broadcaster.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, because he's joking there about he was right. His lifetime batting average. He did play in the major leagues. You got to give him that. Not everybody's able to get to the major leagues, but his batting average was 200, which is not going to get you in the Hall of Fame. But a funny guy there.
Yeah, hilarious.
But we're not going to play a beer commercial here on AFR, but many people remember that commercial from the 70s for Miller Lite when he's
I must be in the front row.
I must be in the front row. All right. So anyway, that's Bob Uecker there passed away. By the way, he won a World Series with the Cardinals in 1964. I didn't realize.
He was joking when he was up there. He says, "Yeah, and I won the World Series for the Cardinals in 1964."
Yeah, Bob Gibson had nothing to do with it. It was Bob Uecker, right? Bob Uecker was the one.
Right.
All right, what's your first story for us?
Hey, I'd like to go back. We've been talking a little bit about what's going on in the fire zone in L.A. There are currently 4 or 5. Let me see. They got 5 active fires. They are in order of size. The Palisades fire, which is burned 23,700 acres, and it's only 22% contained. It started on the 7th, so it's been going for like a week. Same day, there's the Eaton fire that's 55% contained. It's burned 14,000 acres. Then the Hearst fire is 98% contained. Smaller fire, 800 acres. And then the Otto fire is 85% contained, and it's only burned 61 acres. But they are having a terrible time down there. We talked yesterday a little bit about the trouble that Gavin Newsom was having. He was being recalled. He is being recalled. And I wanted to play a couple things for you to tell you why he's being recalled. This is a whistleblower by the name of, Daniela Bloom. And this is what she witnessed. This is her on the recall. Cut 9.
He has 20% approval rating and a whole lot of motivation from everyone, including fed up, angry Hollywood Democrats. We have the motivation, and we're hoping that we can collect those 1.4 million signatures that we need, and we can recall him as early as August 1st. Maybe it does take the burning of their own homes to call out the incompetency, because I've seen staunch Democrats go off on Newsom a day I never thought I would see.
So that's the recall effort, and they say they might have a chance at this one.
So is this the version? Forgive my ignorance here, but is this like a version of impeaching him?
Yeah,
recall. The same thing.
Well, impeaching is a political process by where you're kicked out of office by the legislative body.
But having him removed.
A recall is taking a vote. They're putting a ballot together, a special election together, collecting signatures, and hoping that enough Californians vote to remove him from office.
Before he's has an opportunity. When is he go? When's he going to be? When's the nomination for him to be reelected? When's that? Any idea? I mean,
no,
I don't know off the top of my head.
He went through a recall back in the last couple of years.
Yeah, he did, and he lost to Larry Elders.
Yeah,
lost to Larry Elder.
Larry Elder. In fact, the lady that you just heard was on Larry Elder's election team.
Yeah,
isn't that right?
Yeah,
he won.
Oh, sorry.
Newsom won.
I'm sorry, but he lost. You're right.
Larry Elder's
Larry
lost.
lost. That's right. Yeah,
Yes.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Thanks for the correction.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the things that they're upset about. This is a lady named Avery Warwick, who's a whistleblower and a citizen journalist, and I think we can assume that what she's saying is accurate because Elon Musk actually reposted this very video. I want you to hear, you might have heard that Elon sent a bunch of his electric trucks in there with his Starlink internet connectors because they were having trouble with the internet connections in the fire zone. The towers had burned down, so he was going to help. And this is what Avery Warwick says happened. Cut 10.
The firefighters that I spoke with told me that Gavin Newsom directed the removal of Elon Musk from the command post where he was live streaming with that battalion chief. Gavin Newsom told him to leave, kicked Elon out for trying to help. It doesn't end there. Gavin Newsom also ordered the Cal Fire firefighters to return and not accept the donated Starlinks by order of the governor. Now, I've been told by firefighters on the ground that Starlink has directly impacted the success of fighting these fires through improving communication methods. I'm sure we've all seen by now that Gavin has posted, Elon Musk's lies exposed by firefighters on the ground. Leave it to Gavin to politicize a tragedy and attack the man that was trying to help.
Yeah, that's the guy that the Democrats think they might want to put up for president later.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Not now.
Not now.
I don't think so before now, but certainly not now after what's happened in California. Let me ask you this, Steve. What's the bottom line failure in the eyes of many people against Gavin Newsom? Because, okay, I'm just going to play, I don't know if it's called, can you do devil's advocate on Christian radio, Fred?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to play. I'll just put I'll give the opposing view.
All right.
I'm just asking.
Some people are wondering why you playing devil's advocate against the devil, Gavin Newsom himself.
You know, Westy, that's why I hesitated here. I didn't want too much devil here on the radio. Too many devils.
That's right.
So my question is, how are forest fires the fault of the governor? I mean, he doesn't control nature.
Well, no, but he does control how the state is managed as far as like forest management. It's his call. His environmental global warming fixation has got to the point where he was not allowing the underbrush to be cleared. He was diverting water that should have been down in Los Angeles, and they drained it out into the Pacific.
Why?
To save an endangered fish. Did
they save it?
I don't know.
What's the name of that
probably
fish?
Burned up now. The Delta smelt.
The Delta smelt.
I don't even know if it's edible or what, but it was endangered. Anyway, it's those kind of policies. Plus, he was already on the way out. When you remember the French Laundry incident, the French Laundry is a very expensive restaurant up in the North Bay area, like the wine country. And during COVID, he confined everybody to their house, closed all of the churches and all this kind of stuff. And somebody caught him at a party at the French Laundry.
With no mask.
With no mask. When everybody was supposed to be sheltering in place, he was out partying at the. So the rules.
Well, wasn't he reelected since then?
He might have been, but this is the thing. California is so deep blue, they have kind of got addicted to voting D no matter what. I'm hearing that now with the fires and this accumulation of everything, there might be a chance that California starts trending purple.
I believe it when I see it.
Yeah, well.
So let me comment a little bit on your question.
I've been wrong before, so go ahead.
And that is that, back to your question about what does a governor have to do with the wildfire? So the first layer to this is in the event that a wildfire does happen and you go to a fire hydrant and you plug up your hose and you start spraying water and put it out, then there's no problem here. There's none. It's when you go to the fire hydrant and you plug it up and there's no water, then you have to start asking the question, with this fire hydrant was supposed to stop this fire. This is as simple as it gets. And then you go, okay, where's the water? And then you start backtracking. That's how you get there. Because I'm with you on day one. I thought it was too early to make this political. Way too early. I mean, we're not even 6 hours in.
Right.
I was against the Republican side of making this political 6 hours in.
Right.
We're, what are we, 5 days in now? 6 days?
No, a week.
A week. Yeah. So we're 7 days in. While the fires are no more better off today than they were then.
A little bit, but not
maybe a little bit. But you're now 7 days in, you're starting to go, okay, why is it not? And then you start backtracking, and a lot of it has to do with his policies and Bass. What was
the mayor?
Karen Bass.
Karen Bass, the mayor.
Mayor of.
She's the one that
fire department themselves. We got a lot of issues.
Yeah, she cut the budget of the fire department right before this, and she was warned that this was coming.
Sure she was, and so was the insurance companies. which is I say warned. They had.
Yeah, they were not renewing policies.
And why is that?
Because
they're following
because
the
it was high
politics.
risk for their company to insure these people.
Go broke.
Yep. So, anyways, I hope that.
Yeah, I understand.
But you got to go back to the forest management issue.
Mm-hmm.
The forest management, there is a reason why the underbrush. I've noticed in our general area here, we have something called the Natchez Trace that goes through Mississippi.
The Parkway,
Federal Parkway.
Right.
One of the things that they'll do occasionally is burn the underbrush.
Right.
If you look off that
Right.
parkway, they'll burn that underbrush. Why are they doing that?
Every year they do that.
Yes, because if somebody throws a match,
Right.
the whole forest around the parkway goes up, which is the point that Donald Trump has made with Newsom, and Newsom argued back and forth. You're not going to tell us what to do. There may be lawsuits now based on the fact that Newsom deliberately did not allow the removal of that underbrush, which has allowed these fires to occur again.
In the name of what, though? Would he deny that?
Well, because if he had followed that policy, which many have recommended, you would not probably have the extent of the fires that we have seen.
And why didn't he do it? Because of it's an environmental thing again. I think it was probably the carbon footprint of doing it. I'm not sure exactly why. But this is exactly they had about 2-3 years ago the Paradise Fire, which is a northern California town in the mountains. The town was just decimated, just destroyed by fire, and there was a whole bunch of pictures and videos of people barely escaping with their lives and everything. And again, it was 2 years ago, and the same concern. So they've known. It's not like this is new.
Well, and to your point, they're called either prescribed fires or controlled fires.
Yes,
these are purposeful fires. You know, in addition to this, now they do it primarily for what you mentioned. You know, there's another benefit to this. They get to practice.
Yeah,
they get to take their skills that they've worked on, and they get to put it into play. And they have to work through communications. They have to work through making sure they can get water to where it needs to be. There's a lot of things that they get to practice, but they get to do it at their own pace so they can learn. So there's many good reasons for this.
Well, what we're talking about here is
the disaster in California.
Yeah, there are some people who are blaming the politicians in California and in particular the Los Angeles area, namely the mayor there.
To be clear, they didn't light the match. They didn't start the fire.
And just to be clear too, you had I understand that there were 6 months without rain.
Yeah.
And so you had a tinderbox already.
Sure.
And which made it worse but you're right. I want to know why they didn't have the water to fight the fire. And from what we hear was the reservoir, which was supposed to have the water for the people to fight the fires in the firefighters in Palisades, which is still the major fire.
Yeah.
They didn't have access to it.
Right.
The water wasn't there because it wasn't in the reservoir. Why wasn't it in the reservoir? Because so that's an answer that politicians have to answer.
Yeah. No.
And then secondly, the mayor of Los Angeles initiated cuts in the fire department budget. And listen, mayors, they have to make calls, Democrat or Republican, they have to make calls on what to prioritize. They're not like the federal government where you have an endless, you can go print money. In a city like Los Angeles, you have a limited amount of funds that you have to delegate for various and different agencies, right? Now, Los Angeles is the second largest city in America, so that's an enormous responsibility. So she decided, the mayor, Bass, to cut the fire department instead of some other agency, and the fire department warned this is putting people at risk because we can't respond if you're going to cut our budget, right? So that's the criticism that's coming her way right now, because she did cut the budget and there was a massive fire and they're saying, I told you so. So anyway, also she was out of the country when all this started happening, and that didn't look good either.
I
go
see
ahead.
what you're saying, though. The purple, I kind of tend to lean toward Steve on turning purple. You say hard no. Here's the issue. And amongst all of this, the country as a whole, including I say a lot, comparatively speaking, a lot on the West Coast are over the DEI woke stuff, and that was also a big contributing. That's also a big problem in their fire department ads for LA. I mean, we played this week.
Yeah.
I do think there are some things that they're saying. Even your left people are saying, I don't care how tall, short, what color your skin is. Can you put out a fire? But they've got, and all this stuff's coming back up. It may not have been a problem at the time, but it's definitely
but liberalism is a mental disorder,
mm-hmm.
and unless you get counseling and therapy, it's hard to break people of voting for the Democrats. In California, it's a 60-40 favor of Democrats. We'll see.
Although,
we'll see.
California did go 9 points to the right
during the last election. Yeah, that's
didn't.
We'll see whether that's a trend.
Republicans didn't win, but they gained.
Or one-off. It's also the land of Kamala Harris.
Yeah,
you're right.
As a U.S. senator.
Well, and I'm kind of backtracking now. They've also lost a lot of influential conservatives that were there too.
Right. Well,
4 or 5 years.
A lot of people have left California because of the liberal insanity.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I know people personally. People listening to me.
My
know
family.
People. Your family, yeah. They left. I mean, it got so crazy and insane that people left. You're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. What's your next story?
We've been talking for a bit about the COVID vaccine and the possible side effects. This untested mRNA shot that is not like a regular vaccine that introduces a little bit of the disease and gets your immune system going. This actually rewrites some of your RNA, messenger RNA, and it introduces the spike protein. There have been reports, and the government denied it for a long time, but now it's becoming almost impossible to ignore. You remember we talked a little while back about the Los Angeles Times deciding not to endorse a candidate. Now, how does this relate? The owner of the Los Angeles Times is a man named Patrick Soon-Shiong. He not only is a billionaire that owns the New York Times, he is a renowned transplant surgeon. And I want to play you what he had to say, what he is noticing in his practice that he says is very unusual. Cut 12.
So this idea of the effectiveness and safety of the vaccines is real science. We need to talk about it. And guess what? Not only are we going to have two big crises about the recovery of California over the next decade, but we're going to have to address the rising incidence of cancer. For the first time in my career, I've seen an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old with colon cancer. The first time in my career, I have had a 13-year-old child in our clinic die of metastatic pancreatic cancer. We have to face this effectiveness and face reality. The good news is that we can do something about it. The good news now, there are effective therapies because we understand the science in such an immense way.
So it's interesting. He used the phrase, we have to face reality.
Yeah.
That's what's going on in this country.
What's he saying? The COVID vaccines cause cancer in children? Is that what he's saying?
Colon cancer in 8 and 9-year-olds.
Is that what he's saying?
That's
Seriously?
What he's saying.
Yes.
That's what he's saying.
Yes.
No.
Pancreatic cancer in a 13-year-old.
What's his profession?
He's a transplant surgeon.
Oh.
From where?
California.
He's in He's
I'm
Asian,
sorry,
so I'm not
where he's
Korean.
practicing
In Southern California.
He owns he owns the LA Times newspaper.
Yeah.
That's right.
Which is the largest newspaper.
There's some credibility there.
Yeah. Well, he's a businessman. He's not a far lefty, but but he's a practicing surgeon, and him to say that like he did. By vaccines, he's talking about the COVID vaccine?
He's talking about the COVID vaccine specifically. And there's been a number of studies that have not obviously gotten the press coverage that they should. I'm in contact fairly often for AFN with a doctor that is kind of on this this bandwagon. He's been warning about this for quite a while, Peter McCullough.
Yeah.
And
Dr. Peter McCullough, we've had him on our program.
Right.
Well, we don't have time to revisit this much, but There was no reason to give children vaccines for COVID.
I certainly don't have time to revisit this.
No, we can go on and on and get Wesley wound up here. We won't get a word in edgewise. We only got a minute to go here on the show.
I'm more of an expert on the mask situation. We can talk vaccines, but I'm your mask guy.
The mask. Yeah.
If I have to pick one of the three problems here.
We can live through Wes. We can talk to Wesley about his adventures with masks.
Yeah.
The fact that
I was a Black Row Regiment mask man.
Yes, meaning you never wore one. All right, thank you, Steve.
My pleasure.
Thanks to Wesley and to Fred and to Brent Creeley, our producer, Chris Woodward. No, Chris Woodward's our producer. And then let's see, who else?
No, Brent's our producer.
My bad.
I got you.
Brent Creeley's our producer. Chris Woodward was on earlier. And
from the news side.
Jan Markell.
Dan Steiner.
You know, I'm going to quit trying to remember all these people. I'm just going to say, whoever was on the show today, thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
There you go.
That'll work. We'll see you next time. Trivia Friday tomorrow.
You know, the new year is a great time to